Greetings, this is Rabbi Aaron Boxt from Temple Beth Shalom in Ocala, Florida, back for my podcast for this week. When I was a little kid growing up, I was the only Jewish kid in my class for many years. And, you know, when we celebrated Passover in the months, usually in April, sometimes in March, I always thought that that's what everybody did. So, you know, when my mom would say, okay, this weekend is going to be what we called spring cleaning, which everyone called spring cleaning, but it was specifically to get our house ready to get our home ready for Passover. And I thought that's what everybody did. Of course, you know, learned later on that spring cleaning just literally means cleaning the house, but that only Jewish people celebrated the holiday of Passover and the liberation or redemption from freedom, or redemption from slavery to freedom for the Israelites back in the time of Egypt. And as I got older, I started to think about, you know, really the significance of Passover and cleaning the house and getting everything ready for this commemoration, the celebration of Passover, and really the significance of Passover to the Jewish world. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to get invited sometimes to my friends' seders. And I was a little confused because my friends were not Jewish and they were celebrating the Passover Seder. And you know, I went to one person's house that I can remember specifically, and it was completely different from any Passover Seder that I had been at my house or at my synagogue. And when I got home that day, I asked my mom, you know, I told her sort of about my experiences, and I asked her, you know, what was the point of that Seder? Was our Seder wrong? And she said, you better ask your rabbi. And so I did. Rabbi Sanford Marcus was my rabbi, and I gave him a call the next day, and I spoke to him, and I asked him about the Passover Seder. And what he said to me was, a lot of people in the Christian world believe that Jesus' Last Supper was a Passover Seder. And I said, oh, well, Jesus was Jewish, even though we didn't believe that he existed, but, you know, we know that he was Jewish, or at least that's what my Christian friends told me. And, you know, I chalked it up to, okay, you know, maybe they're celebrating the celebration that Jesus did, and that's, you know, what they did. And then as I got older and got into college and beyond, and then, of course, just before rabbinical school, I started to realize that Passover Seder has nothing to do with Jesus. Passover Seder has everything to do with the story of the Jewish people. When I was living in Atlanta prior to going to rabbinical school, I was working in Tichon, Atlanta, which was a Jewish high school program. And the Passion of the Christ, the movie that Mel Gibson directed, came out, and we had a meeting prior to the movie coming out, and what we were basically told was, this week we're going to teach about where the story of the Passion of the Christ got it wrong, as far as through Jewish eyes. And so, you know, I, of course, went to see the movie and was really taken aback. There's one particular scene when Pontius Pilate he has Jesus, or has Barabbas, excuse me. It's either Jesus or Barabbas. I don't remember which one. It's probably Jesus, actually, in shackles, and he's looking out to the people, which, of course, the Jews, the Israelites, and there's this weird-looking devilish kind of head sort of weaving in and out of the crowd, really implying that the devil was there in that community. And I remember this movie painting a picture of Pontius Pilate that's just historically inaccurate. It paints a picture of Pontius Pilate being this, kind of figurehead in Jerusalem who really didn't want to kill Jesus, but he gave the choice to the Jews to decide whether we're going to kill Barabbas or whether they're going to kill Jesus, and kind of washing his hands of it. Well, if you go to Roman history and you look at history books, Pontius Pilate was a bloodthirsty leader who was kicked out of Rome because they were afraid he was going to try and go for the throne. And he was sent to Judea to be the leader of that city because it was far away from Rome. And so, we taught this, and we talked about Jesus's Last Supper couldn't have been a Passover Seder, because Passover is a Chag, it's a holiday. And further in the story, after a few hours after dinner, Jesus is arrested. And the Bible, the Christian Bible, and Passion of the Christ shows that it was the Jewish court the Jewish court that actually arrested Jesus. Well, that couldn't have been possible, because if it was Passover Eve, they would not have been working. They would have been in their homes in their seders. Anyway, so we taught these things, and I have been invited a couple of times as a rabbi to help a church put together a Seder, and I didn't think much of it. But today, when I was getting ready to come to work, I read one of my friends, something that she'd written on Facebook, and she wrote, "Dear Christian friends considering holding a Passover Seder. The story of the Exodus is the central story of the Jewish people. It is the story of our liberation from the narrow straits of slavery in Egypt to the promised land of Eretz Israel. It is also the story of our nation's covenant with God. It is emphatically a Jewish story. Historically, Passover was also a time when many of your Christian ancestors persecuted us in Europe. It was a time of bloodshed and terror for the Jewish people. If you still plan on holding a Seder, please reconsider. If you'd like to attend a Jewish Seder, I'm happy to help facilitate that. But if you are going to host a Seder, despite the sensitivities around this, please consider also incorporating the history of violent persecution against the Jewish people in Europe and the Middle East during Passover into your evening conversations. Please also remember to include the hostages when you say, 'Let my people go,' and use this as a teachable moment to tell your children what was done to us and is being done to us so they can do better. Thank you." This was written by Sarah Tuttle Singer. And I have to tell you, I read that and I thought, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. Well written. It says exactly what needs to be said. If you are celebrating Passover Seder because you believe it to be Jesus' last meal, supper, you have totally lost the point of the Passover Seder. Passover Seder is all about celebrating the Jewish redemption from slavery to freedom. And Jesus couldn't have been having a Passover Seder on his last supper, because it would have been a holiday. There's more to it than that, but I think that's a really good start. So I want to say thank you personally, Sarah Tuttle Singer, for writing this, and I will be sharing this on my wall on Facebook. For those of you that celebrate Passover, the commemoration of the redemption from slavery, I wish you a Zis Pesach. I hope that you are able to attend a Seder. If you are hosting a Seder, I wish you the greatest of spirituality and intention, and an early Shabbat Shalom as well. Talk to you next time.